All right, well, we begin with a big day on Capitol Hill as Congress returns for the first time since the GOP steamrolled Democrats at the polls last week. The likely Senate Majority Leader in the next Congress, Mitch McConnell, welcoming his soon-to-be Republican colleagues. The GOP adding a plus margin of 8 senators, with Dan Sullivan now declared the winner in Alaska. This is Hill watchers say the lame duck session beginning today could provide the first crucial test of whether or not Democrats and Republicans can really work together. And if there ever was a doubt that the midterm shellacking was a referendum on the president's leadership, well, these numbers from a new Gallup poll are getting our attention. By a 17-point margin, 53 to 36%, Americans want the Republican-controlled Congress to steer the nation, not President Obama. And in another sign, voters appear happy with the midterm results. More Americans than not, 33% to 19%, now see themselves being better off in the future than worse off. Okay, so typically, Charlie, I think lame duck Congresses are pretty lame. Historically, they only did it so people could get in their horse and buggies and come back to Congress. Typically, when you lose, you're escorted out the next day in most countries, but we have these lame duck Congresses. I think it's going to be pretty lame. Do you agree?
Although Loretta Lynch will probably become the next Attorney General, maybe in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, it'll be pretty lame. And I think it's going to be lame going forward. I will say this. There is one Democrat that matters, and that's President Obama. Does President Obama want to compromise on a couple of things on Obamacare, get rid of that medical device tax? I don't think so. By the way, it'd be very good for the economy. Is he ready to compromise on Dodd-Frank? Just a couple of things would make it very good for the economy. I don't think so. So I think what this is setting us up for, it's going to be a lot of talking about, compromise and hanging out together and kumbaya. But the next 2 years are going to be a brawl. I just don't see. Yeah, I don't see. Well, the next couple of weeks, I don't think we're going to see it just yet. But when the president starts to unleash that amnesty for illegal aliens, and that's what it essentially is, it's going to be amnesty, which I think he'll do because he wants to pick a fight. That's when the rubber meets the road on a battle royale. Big
ticket items, Harris, immigration and these nominees that Harry Reid has been tasked with pushing through in this lame duck session.
And also those 367 or so pieces of legislation which have passed the House, and can they get them through the Senate and send them to the president's desk? I mean, they've just been sitting there with Harry Reid in control of the Senate. So it'll be interesting to see. What we've laid out here, I think, are what the stakes are for each of the stakeholders. And a good negotiator, you're right, the most important Democrat, the most important American at this point in terms of this process. Can the president, and legally, can the president be a good negotiator and bring both sides together? What is his end goal? You've named what some of the end goals are politically, but what is his?
Listen, I know people that know. I don't know President Obama. I know people that know him personally. He's a brilliant man. He's very smart. He's engaging, even to Republicans. I mean, he's a guy you kind of want to hang out with when you see him one-on-one. But there's something in his DNA, I believe, that will prevent him from compromise. I mean, he is so much more like Saul Alinsky, the great radical community organizer from Chicago, than he is like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton would compromise on every issue I told you about. And by the way, this is what would happen. The economy would break out of its 3% growth mode, would probably go up to 4 or 5. There'd be more jobs. Hillary Clinton would probably get reelected. But I don't think it's in his DNA to pull a Bill Clinton.
All right, let me get Sandra in here. Sandra, you saw the poll numbers. Why do you think people are more optimistic? Is it because they're trusting Republicans to handle the economy? Why are people all of a sudden feeling a little bit better?
This is what the people wanted, and as we saw in the last election, their prayers were answered. They have not liked what's been going on in Washington. It's led many people to have a very pessimistic outlook on not only what's happening right now in this country, but Rachel, also looking forward. They don't feel like their children are going to have a better future. So just change in general has led to a lot more optimism post-election.
And your husband, a congressman, heading back to work, what are his thoughts on the GOP wins?
I think he's also looking at this lame duck session to see what the tone is going to be, and is he actually going to do this amnesty move? I think that there's hope that maybe these Democrats feel the pressure. The ones that were elected, are they going to just cede all their power over to the president and just let him lead their agenda, or are they going to start to compromise a little bit? Not that likely, but possible.
Well, there is an item that they may be able to get some support on from Democrats and Republicans. That's the Keystone Pipeline. And it could cause a little bit of tension, though, for some Democrats in this lame duck session. A Senate Democrats' potential plan to bring this controversial pipeline to a vote before the end of the year. All of a sudden, Harry Reid likes it now. Such measures have failed in the Democratic Congress before, but now the move could help boost Democratic Senator Mary Landrieu's chances in next month's runoff against Republican Republican Bill Cassidy. Now, she said repeatedly that she supports the pipeline and has vowed to bring it to a vote. But Cassidy blasting Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, saying he could have brought it to the floor multiple times.
The only job he's interested in protecting is Senator Mary Landrieu's. He could have brought this up months ago. It is cynicism. It is what people do not like about Washington. They care more about returning their colleague, Senator Landrieu, to the Senate than they do about those 40,000 jobs who would have had better wages, better benefits.
I mean, he is absolutely right, Rachel. Harry Reid could have brought this pipeline, created a number of jobs, but didn't do it. And now when Mary Landrieu's in trouble, he figures, okay, I'll try and bring it to the floor now.
It's a Hail Mary pass for sure, but I don't think it's going to work. I talked to people in Louisiana, some friends of mine, and they said it's not the bacon that she didn't bring home for energy. It's really the energy that she expended on supporting the rest of Obama's agenda, health care and everything else, especially some of the regulations on energy. Those things are not going to get changed by this vote. And by the way, even if they brought this up to vote, it's not going to pass the Senate. And even if it did pass the Senate, it's going to get vetoed by the president. So in the end, what do we have? No change, no new jobs for Louisiana. It's a lame move.
Well, he vetoes the pipeline. I mean, that will, I think, severely.
But he will.
Because this will pass. It will get through with Republicans.
There's not a lot of expectations out there that the president will be okay with this. Listen, let me remind everybody that she's the chairwoman of the Senate Energy Committee. The Republicans have been asking for this vote to come to the floor dozens of times, more than dozens of times. And so the timing is all political here. So don't forget that while she and Democrats and Harry Reid might say, okay, now we'll vote on this because it's a good political strategy, they still need the cooperation of Republicans.
It's not going to help her. Rachel's right. She's not going to save her.
I really think this is going to backfire because I think one of the most uncovered stories out there is just how far left, how much the left wing of the Democratic Party controls the party right now. You know, the media, the mainstream media particularly, wrings their hands so much about, you know, the Christian right controlling the Republican Party, which it has a say. I don't think it controls it, or maybe the Tea Partiers. You know, the Saul Alinsky wing, the Elizabeth Warrens, control the Democratic Party. So think what's going to happen. She may vote for this thing if it comes, but just about every other Democrat is going to vote against it. It's going to expose them to be the left that they are, and it's going to be a problem.
Support. There are some senators. That's why Harry Reid didn't want to bring it to the floor
Joe
sooner.
Manchin,
but
maybe,
for fear it actually would pass and benefit America, which is pretty demented when
Will
you
he
think
vote
about
against?
it.
Will he vote for it?
Well, that's a great question.
But that's a growing rift within the Democrat coalition, which is their blue-collar, you know, blue dog Democrats who are union and want these kind of union. These are great union jobs.
Three of them. There are three of them.
And they're environmental left on the East Coast and the West Coast who are controlling.
Listen, for every Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, he's outnumbered. You know, he's outnumbered.
He's outnumbered.
Oh, wow.
You know, the Democratic Party really is the party of the far left. And I think one of the things we learned from this election is just how far left the Democratic Party is and how, like, middle America, and I don't mean like, you know, people in the middle of America, how most people in that radical middle that Dick Morris always talked about. I hate to quote the guy, but, you know, he was right about this. How they hate the extreme of the left. Yeah. People always thought, you know, the conventional wisdom, they hated the extreme of the right. This last election shows they hate the extreme of the left.
A lot of the moderates lost, and so now President Obama is dealing with an even more progressive, liberal Senate.
The one thing I would say about President Obama, brilliant politician. Don't underestimate him on this. There are traps every 3 feet.
And why do you
Hopefully
just lose
Republicans can outsmart him.
I'm not saying that, you know, he wasn't there either, right? He didn't play a big role for obvious reasons, but he's a smart guy.
Policies did, Charlie.
Yeah,
Right.
we gotta go. The firestorm continues over an Obamacare architect saying that the law passed because of the stupidity of the American voter. Now, he's apologized, but now we're learning that this wasn't just one slip of the tongue. Plus, major retailers charging more for plus-size clothing. So is that really fair? Especially when at least one of them doesn't do it for men. And right after the show, catch more from the couch on the web. Outnumbered Overtime, you know it. Log on to foxnews.com/outnumbered. Click the Overtime tab. Tweet us questions, comments, what you want to talk about. Ask Charlie questions about what he did in Vegas. Try and get him to answer.
Oh, come on.